All right, last week I ran into an article about a manager who charged his employee a full 8 hours of PTO for leaving 5 minutes early. And then I had a flashback to when I worked at Insight. And at Insight, this was one of the worst call centers you could ever find yourself working at. It's just absolutely despicable the way they treat their workers, their high turnover, unable to retain anyone, and their bait and switch hiring style. But I saw them walk an employee back to his cubicle with 30 seconds left at the end of the day. You know what the worst part of that was? That while he was sitting there, those last 30 seconds waiting for it to count down, he got a phone call. And that meant he was going to have to sit there, clock out, and probably work for another 15 to 30 minutes to resolve a request for VPN. And it was one of the most common requests that you're going to get while you're working in a call center. It's the time you want to leave, and some jackass somewhere just arrived at an airport and they want to check their company email, but they can't get out because the airport doesn't support VPN. And then they get back to their hotel and they have the same problem. And what these people don't understand is when you work in one of these places, more often than not, they have a shift that works prime time, and then they have one person that works in the evening between night shift and the shift and the morning shift that comes in. So I happen to be that poor sap who kept getting the same lady over and over and over again, and she kept demanding that I help her, and I'm just like, lady, I can't force the airport to allow VPN connections, but she got so angry that she called my boss. My boss called me in. I got fired from that account that same day. And it's just that way. You know, some people won't take no for an answer. They think that there's always some sort of solution, but there isn't. Sometimes it just sucks. I got that same phone call earlier this week where a person was trying to log in to a network that required them to have credentials to authenticate, to create an account, and then be able to authenticate against their server at using a not a guest account, but a local account that they run through their verification server, which isn't something very hard. But if you don't know anything about computers, you're just stuck until someone comes and points at the places on the screen that you need to click. But that's that. So let's get into our monologue for today. You know what's wild? Companies act like your paycheck is some generous reward, like they're out here doing charity, when in reality, they're just buying your time. And not just your working time either. No, they want your energy, your attention, your availability, your life. That's why leaving 5 minutes early is a crime. Because in their mind, every second you're not trapped in that building is money they lost and freedom you stole. Ouch. That's pretty powerful. But I'll tell you that much. That's exactly how I feel at my current company. They're always watching to see who's not coming in on time. They're always watching to see who's not working hard enough. They have performance meetings with the technicians every other week to see what's going on. Why aren't you meeting the average quota for requests completed? And I've just sat there and kind of just looked at them like, this doesn't apply to me. And I'll just walk right out. It's like, you know what? Your stupid metrics don't cover anything. In my opinion, your metrics don't mean anything to me. And they can't stand people like that. They can't stand people who don't care. And I'm one of those people who doesn't care. My boss has told me over the years regularly, you're not a team player. And I'm like, I'm not playing on a team. It's just me. No one else here matters. I'm here for me. I'm a company. I am the Millennial Steam Corporation. I sell my time to you for what little money you give me, but it's all about me. I will never sacrifice. I'm never going to work like the owner. And telling people to work like the owner for minimum wage is an insult to anyone's intelligence, because anyone who's willing to put forth that much energy for a minimum wage job while you're flipping burgers? That it's impossible. Those two things don't exist in the same universe the same way your boss thinks that you actually care, because you don't. And the second they they realize that their workers are unmotivated and simply are there for a paycheck, they start looking for reasons to fire you. Hey, like I said in one of my previous videos, I've been fired because I came to work with the attitude that this is just a gas station. I just come here, I push the button, I go home. There's nothing about this job that's going to make me rich or make me move up into a higher tax bracket. There's nothing here. This isn't a career. It's just a job. And regardless of what the job is, every corporation in America wants their employees to come to work with a positive attitude and a smile, because they don't care that you're broke. They don't care that you're miserable. They don't care that you had nothing to eat today. They don't care if you can't pay your bills. They want loyalty, but there's no loyalty back. And that's the scariest part, is that they demand all of this from you. But the reality is they can't stand you. They don't like your class of people. All right, talking point number one. Companies will dock your pay for leaving 5 minutes early, but they have no problem wasting hours of your life in pointless meetings, broken systems, or waiting for approvals. Their time is valuable. Yours is disposable. I actually had one of the guys call me from the support wing of the department the other day, and he says to me, "Millennials team, why don't they fix any of this stuff?" And I said, because to those people, nothing's broken. I'm the only person in my entire group has vocally gone to the executives and said, nothing works. And they just look at me and like, oh, he's stupid. Don't listen to him. He doesn't know what he's talking about. And they actually tried to do that to me in the same meeting. It's like, he doesn't know what he's talking about. Everything's fine. The next day, the entire network goes down. I'm like, everything's fine, right? Everything's fine. And people have given up on saying anything. Everyone just stays quiet because everyone knows that you're just one word away from the simple fact that there is no security in your position. Every single person I know is well aware that you could be let go at any moment. I see it every single day. People who walk in on a Monday morning not knowing anything's wrong, it's 9 o'clock, and you have a meeting with HR that suddenly pops up on your schedule. That meeting is your exit interview, and you're gone, as if you never worked there. And people just move on. That's what gets me. It's like these stories that you hear about at Amazon where a person falls. They're murked at work by the stress, by a heart attack, by the financial stress of not making enough. All of that starts wearing you down. And once they fall down, they put a yellow caution cone there. And eventually someone shows up to get rid of you. But in the meantime, they tell you just to walk around. Nothing to see here. And that's exactly how I feel when people fall at work. The casualties of work and the layoffs or sudden terminations, we all have to get used to it. We've all become desensitized to seeing Susie Rottencrotch doing the walk of shame down the middle of the office. But I've also seen them where they don't want the other employees to see. Like when I got fired from Inside, when they called me to one of the offices, I didn't look back. But as they were taking me off to an office off in a corner to fire me, someone else ran over to my desk and started putting everything that wasn't theirs into a box. And they fired me in that room. And then security walked me to the front office, and they handed me my box. And I looked inside that box and I said, "Where's my phone charger?" And they acted all like, oh, well, they started acting stupid. It's like, oh, we didn't see it. It's like, I know it's there because I use it every day. And so they ran back, they grabbed it, they showed it to me, and I'm like, yeah. I actually cursed them out as I walked out too. I was just like, I gave a lot of 4-letter words because I was miserable working there. And they kept using me until my productivity dropped to practically nothing, where I just showed up to work and I just did nothing. I just kind of looked around. every time they tried to move me to a different group with a 100% fatality level. I kid you not, there were groups inside there that could retain no employees whatsoever because the work was that stressful. It was 130 calls a day, difficult tickets, angry customers, and no one would work in that particular area. So when they offered to move me to that area, I said, no, why don't you just fire me rather than burning me out over there and then firing me? But companies don't want to hear people like me. They hate people like me. They hate people like me who speak out in the workplace against them because they're like, oh, we don't want any of the other workers hearing your ear poison. Moving on to our first talking point or second talking point. Think about it. You earned those hours working, and then they act like PTO is this magical prize for being loyal when it's literally your time that you already worked for. PTO is not a gift in their opinion. It's just them selling you your own time back to you. That's really what it comes down to. And there are places where PTO is given to you when you start the job, like you get your 2 weeks or your 3 weeks when you start, and they tell you can use it anytime. But most have gotten smart about it. Most places that I've worked at now, you accrue 4 hours every paycheck. And that means that you can only take, it takes you like, I don't know, takes you 2 months to accrue 1 week. That sounds about right. It might even be slower than that because I think I had to use almost all my PTO time in order to move. And my boss was still skeptical about why I needed to be off because things don't work well there. When I'm not there, the wheels stop turning. There's no one else to do that job. And when you work for a company that's this cheap, of course, when one person isn't there, especially in a critical position, a critical senior level position like mine, and you're not there, suddenly things aren't happening. The work stops. And they scratch their head. It's like, well, why aren't the other people picking up the slack? Because they don't know how to do that job. Why? Because they don't want to pay people. They want to keep jobs as simple as humanly possible. They don't want one person being able to do more than what they want to pay them for. So that way, when it comes to firing them, all you have to do is replace this portion of the work. So they compartmentalize work, which makes it very dangerous when you have a compartment that's specialized, like my job. They can fire every single other person I work with, and it would be fine. You just bring in another wheel and keep going. But this is a special wheel. This wheel does all kinds of other things. So when you lose that one, it discombobulates the entire unit. They don't like that. In fact, they absolutely hate that. We've been able to function without a senior manager for 6 months. We don't need him. That position is completely useless in my opinion. The person above me has been able to take weeks and weeks of vacation. Does it harm anyone else? Absolutely not. So when a job hurts the company, it's functioning, that means that job is important. But at the same time, they don't want you thinking that your PTO is actually yours. They want to let you take your PTO when it's convenient to them. Talking point number 3. Micromanagement isn't about productivity. It's about control. No one's writing people up for being bad at their job. They're getting written up for not asking permission or leaving without approval. It's never about the work. It's about obedience. This is exactly what happened in my last job review. It wasn't about my job performance. It was about the obedience of asking for permission to do this, asking for permission to do that, and being there all of the time. I'm the only person that's required in my group to be there all of the time. And not only that, but I'm also required to be there nights, weekends, holidays, whenever they need that position. There's no one else to call. What you need, if what you need is an emergency and needs to be done now, it is expected for the person in that job to work nights and weekends. And when you question that, it's like, why can't I just do whatever I want? Why can't I just go on vacation? Why can't I just call out sick without feeling an enormous guilt trip from upper management. It's like, well, like again, when I worked at Insight, this was something that was very, very common there. You'd call out sick that morning, and a couple of hours later, your boss calls you at home. You already have your sick time, right? You already put it in, and they call you to ask if you can still come to work. Are you feeling better? Can you come back to work? And you're like, no, I took a sick day. And they'll call you back again. And if you don't answer, they will give you hell the next time they see you. And this happens at every place, whether it's a Kroger's, a Walmart, a Taco Bell. If you don't show up for your shift, it irritates them to the nth degree. They consider you to be the most crap employee that they've ever hired. In fact, I've heard that my entire life. It's like, why do we keep hiring these people that don't want to work? And you're like, people get sick. People have to take time off. We're not machines to be plugged in like a battery and we just run until we're out of juice. People are people. And these corporations don't see people. They want to just make certain that they're under control. And that's what I've noticed about my job ever since I started working there, is the people above you are all about that control. Shut up, do what we say, do what you're supposed to do, and don't complain. That's another one. They don't want their workers complaining about the toxic environment, the crappy hours, the even worse coworkers. They don't want you complaining about any of that stuff. They want you to shut up and do your job. If anything's wrong in your environment, your paycheck's too small, anything that you don't like about your job, it's your fault. Talking point number 4. Corporate America wants ownership of you, not just your skills. They don't want just what you do. They want where you are, what you say, when you leave, and how grateful you look doing it. Your time, your presence, your attitude, all part of the lease agreement when you sell 40 hours of your life every week. I couldn't agree with that more. The lease agreement is also with your soul, and they manage to crush your soul every single time that you have to show up at Evil Corp because you need money. Let's face it, no money, no workers. Nobody wants to work. Not a single part of the proletariat has ever woken up and be like, oh man, today's a great day to go make the minimum wage. It's not the way the proles think. Proles think of work as a necessary evil. Evil Corp doesn't approve of that mentality. That, in their opinion, is a thought crime, millennial steam. You need to stop thinking with that attitude. You need to come to work because work is a privilege, not a right. You have the right to be humiliated. You have the right to the lack of dignity in your work because it doesn't pay you enough to live. There is nothing about work that comes with any respect for the people doing that work. Because if there was respect, if there was dignity in actual work, the top level people would actually work. Instead, they spend all their days monitoring your performance, looking at your attitude, and making certain that you acknowledge that this only benefits one of you, the corporation, with its record profits every year. Because without you, it doesn't get record profits. But with you and the corporation, you end up at the soup kitchen, you end up at the food bank, you end up not being able to pay your bills, and sooner rather than later, you're going to be facing an eviction note because they raise your rent by $400 that you don't have. And you can't gig work your way out of this. It just doesn't pay enough. As I mentioned yesterday, while I was in the car riding with an acquaintance of mine, she was doing surveys to make extra money. And I thought, oh my God, is this really what we've come to? You're spending all of your free time, all of your waking hours trying to figure out how to scrape another dime out of the system. And that's where I'm going to end this today, guys. I hope you enjoyed it, and you guys are going to be seeing this in the future. I have to get ready to go get a haircut because I've been avoiding it for 6 weeks because it's too expensive. But inevitably, you can look like trash, and you can look like trash on fire if you don't take care of yourself.